Right, so we're starting off our HSC course with some more financial mathematics. What we start off with first is another look at interest, and particularly comparing the difference that it makes whether something is a simple interest earning investment or a compound interest earning investment. The difference between those two, simple interest says, I calculate the interest, doesn't matter how long the investment is for, but it is always based on how much is invested at the very beginning of the whole time. Compound interest says, I calculate interest each time by how much is there each time I do the interest. And so I've already got some interest, and so my next interest calculation is a little bit more because I've now got a slightly bigger amount, and it keeps growing and growing and growing. Each time I calculate the interest, it's a slightly higher amount because the amount keeps growing. I want to work through that on the board so that you can see just exactly how that works. So in my example on the board, I'm investing $10,000 at a rate that is 7.6% per annum, but I'm compounding it quarterly. So that means every 3 months I put the interest in and then I calculate my next amount of interest. So every 3 months I kind of reset and calculate again. Why 3 months? Because I'm doing it quarterly, every quarter of the year. 3 months is a quarter of the year. Okay, and so I need to do some adjustments here, or an adjustment here first, to reflect the fact that it's compounded quarterly. So I'm going to calculate the interest earned in just 3 months, not for the whole year. So how do I have to change my rate to reflect that? That rate currently is in a whole year, but I'm only going to work out for a quarter of a year. So what do I do to the rate? Divide by 4, that's right. So I'm going to change my rate to a quarterly rate, so that equals 1.9%. Okay, and so that's the rate that I need to use. Now, so how does it work? When we do compound interest, we'll use a table like this. We'll work across, we'll go to balance at the start of the interest period, how much interest you earn during that period based on what that balance is, and then therefore how much I've got at the end of that interest period, and then I start my next interest period and I continue on however many times the question wants me to do that.
Do you get charged interest?
Okay, so how does this work? You'll use these tables as I said. So you start off with what you, because this is the first period, we can just start off with the amount that we know, $10,000. How much interest is earned in a quarter of a year on this $10,000? Okay, so we need to use our normal simple interest formula for each line, and then the lines are different, that's what makes it compound interest. Can everyone remember what the simple interest formula is? I equals PR, that's great. Okay, what does the I stand for? Interest earned. What does the P stand for? The principal, which means what you start with, rate, and the number of time periods, whatever it is. So usually years, but not always. Okay, so we're going to do that for each time here. So we need to work out what our principal is. That's what this is here. What our rate is, I've just worked that out, and the number of time periods. Well, in this case here, we're each doing it just for one time period. So it becomes a very easy calculation. 10,000 interest equals 10,000 times 1.9% times 1. So you put that in your calculator, and you'll find that that is $190. And so how much do I have at the end? I add those two together. I now have $10,190. At the end of my first quarter, because again, we're compounding quarterly, so after 3 months you do an interest calculation, you add it in, and then at the start of the next quarter, so the end of the first quarter, we do this, the start of the next quarter, we now have a new amount. We now have $10,190. That's the same as up here, I just write the same thing in here. So every time you copy in that amount into down here. Okay, every time it's the same one you end with for the period, you start the next time period with the same amount. And now you do the same thing again. Interest equals, now it's 10,190 times 1.9%. $193.61. Now, what's happened from the first interest period to the second interest period? What's happened here? There's more interest being earned. Can you see that? Yeah, there's more interest being earned. Why is that? Because for this second interest period, we started with a slightly higher amount. Now, in the end, it's $3. It's not going to change our lifestyle on $3. But when this happens enough times, over a long enough period, and if you start with a large amount, maybe you might start with $300,000, not $10,000, all of that means that all of a sudden those differences actually become significant. Okay, in our situation here, $10,000, a decent amount, but we've only just started the second interest period. Okay, so we're not very far into the time. So it's only $3 difference, but it's starting to make a difference. So again, I now add this. What I started with this interest period, what interest I get during this interest period becomes my balance at the end, which is 10,383.61. Okay, that is how much now I have at the end of the second interest period. So my third interest period starts with that amount. And then in that interest period, I now multiply that amount. I get $197.29 to the nearest cent. Now you can see again that we've got a slightly bigger again. Each time we've got a slightly bigger interest amount. Why? Because we're starting with a bigger amount for that interest period. And so after the third interest period, $1,050.90 to the nearest cent. Okay? Now that's for 3 interest periods. How long was our interest period? 3 months. So how long have I done this for now? 9 months. I've done 3 periods, 3 months each. So that's 9 months. This is after 9 months, how it's grown. Okay, if you continued on with that, you could continue on and see how it grows after 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. There is a formula that you can use, but at this stage we're just looking at this as filling out a table. I'll talk about the formula.